Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, friends. Thank you for being here for yet another podcast video in this case. Anyway, I hope this finds you in good health and secure. We're going to start a new Gosho today. And if you've been following along and you know that we're doing a whole new collection of Gosho translations than the previous 300 and some videos of the Gosho translations from the Zenshu. This is the Propagation Association supported by Nichiren Shu. So it's a different set of translations and a different, not all different, but includes some Gosho that the Zenshu does not, and vice versa. So, studying the Gosho may sound like a narrow endeavor. Nichiren is our mentor, advisor, bodhisattva for this period of time since the Buddha's or Shakyamuni Buddha's extinction. Come on, mouth. But again, if you followed along, I think it's very obvious that by studying the Gosho, what we're actually studying, albeit through Nichiren, is the scholarship of all of Shakyamuni's teachings and every scholar and bodhisattva since. Because Nichiren is nothing if not indulgent, if you will, in drawing out and quoting from the entire oeuvre of Buddha's teachings, from Shakyamuni to himself. So it would be easy to make the argument that by studying the Gosho, we are studying the entire scholarship of Shakyamuni. Yeah? Especially in the question and answer format, because we get not only a sense of inquiry into the scholarship of Buddhism, but we also get some insights into the context of Nichiren's day and these competing schools of influence, from Zen to True Word, Nembutsu, so on. So this is just a little reminder and something I'd like to plant in your mind, that although there's a tremendous amount of videos on this channel that are labeled or fall under the label or playlists of Nichiren Gosho, I think it's important to understand that Nichiren is our portal to the scholarship of all of Shakyamuni's teachings and the teachings, therefore, of Buddhism. It's an important reminder. I don't want you to feel like, and I never want to promote this channel as some translators would write it as Nichiren's Buddhism, because there is no Nichiren's Buddhism. Nichiren's Buddhism is Shakyamuni's Buddhism. Nichiren is a bodhisattva. Nichiren didn't invent any of this Buddhism. Nichiren was a necessary tool of enlightenment, a personage, a bodhisattva necessary, as Shakyamuni pointed out throughout his teachings, that at this time in history, with humanity's capacity for understanding the nature of mind, Nichiren is our personal mentor for how and what method you and I need to explore and utilize the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni's Buddhism, to instantly manifest perfect and complete enlightenment. Nichiren has unobfuscated that method that Shakyamuni spoke of 3,000 years ago. Nichiren is our interpreter and our guide in how to accomplish this. And as that guide, he provides us with the perfect mirror and the perfect instantiation of Lotus Sutra Buddhism, something that's been there all along, but for previous ages was obfuscated, not obfuscated like a trick, like I'm not going to show you, it's behind this towel. No, not like that. But by the mere inability, the incapacity of those earlier minds seizing this methodology. And conversely, because of that situation, that human development, that human samsaric mind development, the environment also mirrors that. Buddhism doesn't say people were too stupid to do this. Buddhism says the situation in the development of mind, both in sentient being and surrounding. See, Buddhism has no separation there. It doesn't say self is something other than everything. Everything is self. Self is everything. In Buddhism, there's no border there. This perceived limitation, this hard stop of physical reality is a samsaric construction. That when we perceive the mind, the real mind, that it is not within the borders of this skin, this flesh, this bag of meat. The mind, you could use words like transcend, which have never really set right with me, but it may work for you. It simply means that there's no limitation of this physical realm. The mind is the entire thing, albeit through individual samsaric minds, is experienced locally in this thing we perceive as a self. But the mind is far more capable than the brain. The brain is a local thing. The mind is the universe, albeit experienced through our samsaric window, our portal, our Gohanzon. Make sense? All right. I got a little bit off track there, but I guess I needed to make that statement. So, we're going to start on the differences between Hinayana and Mahayana teachings. And I wouldn't be surprised if what I was just babbling about wouldn't fit this perfectly. Let us see. As I did in the last one, I'll go ahead and include the translator's introduction here. It might be helpful, again, to set the stage, the context for what we're about to read. Always remember that there's a couple of things happening here. First of all, we're reading Nichiren's engagement with his contemporaries, right? So there's a context here. And it's, as I've pointed out many times, the context of medieval shogunate Japan has a tremendous amount of parallels with the world today you and I are experiencing. And it's really no great surprise when you consider that we're all in that Mappo, that age of degeneration, right? So even though there's hundreds of years that separate you and I from Nichiren's day, the politic and the behavior of humans, not that different. So as we read Nichiren, we tend to hear and read and absorb what he's talking about very contemporaneously. Yeah. If you don't, then you may be missing a lot of subtleties here. So don't restrict yourself, I would say, to thinking of this as this is how it was then. How can I use what was then to apply to my daily life today? Well, treat it as somebody who's writing this today. This is very contemporary. It's like a newspaper, yeah? And on the other hand, it's also scholarly. It's a very in-depth study, but always with an eye to the present. So I think that makes these studies and these writings much more alive, which I think is entirely appropriate. But we're also logical beings, aren't we? So we know that the discussions themselves, word for word, again, getting hung up on the words, can seem foreign to us because we know that this is a shogunate and he's dealing with samurai and specifically with the country of Japan and all of that. But really, you can easily substitute in your mind Japan for the world at large. Samurai for simply the amount of violence and weaponry in the world today. Another school shooting just the other day. It's epidemic. It's pandemic. It's all over the world. This outlandish expression of me, ego, taking place through the very base animal behavior of violence and intimidation. How is that different from samurai days? You, if you've studied any martial arts, you might say, well, hold on, samurai at least had a code. And I wouldn't disagree with you. We live in a time now where code, honor, dignity, those words now are very base. They're not how would you say, they're not based on very elaborate ideologies. Not to excuse that behavior, but at least they had a large structure, historical structure, filial structure, that they were adhering to in order to express their violence and their, modes of discipline. Today, all you need is a few Facebook comments, a YouTube video, and all of a sudden there's this self-righteous freaking expression that has hardly any basis in reality except its expression. It's almost instantaneous. Minds of animality, hunger, the lower worlds, the lower realms are rampant today, expressing themselves violently, not only because of the pleasure somehow of violence, but because they're so shallow in their thinking, right? When people have a dialogue that questions about anything, not just Buddhism, When you're able, human to human, to have dialogue that's involved with a whole systematic of thinking, a whole relative experiential knowledge and questions, and there's subtleties in that. I understood this to mean this. I understand what you're saying this means, but could you add this aspect to it? And would that shift how you think about it? These are complex human dialogues, right? But today what we witness is that bad, me good, because me not bad, is about the depth of thinking that goes into these expressions. And the expressions, because they're so shallow, because they're not supported by scholarship, thinking, investigation, they're mostly supported emotionally. They don't have any depth of really thinking. They're simply animal responses. And that shallowness means that they're very vulnerable to destruction. And what's an animal's first response to destruction, to self-evisceration, because their identity is so shallow? It's violence. Oh, you make me bad, me kill you. I mean, it's real. I'm making fun of it, but that's really the level of thinking that goes on today. And I don't mean stupid people. I mean the leaders of nations. Dialogue has all but ceased. In fact, what poses as dialogue today, in general, is slogan throwing. Here's a cool sounding soundbite. Everybody align behind that. And if anybody says it different or it disagrees with our soundbite, kill them. Annihilate them. It's insane. This is how our world is operating right now. As Buddhists, it's up to us to reinvest the human mind with dialogue, with the ability to discuss. And by studying, we're getting a lot of sound bites and a lot of stacks of information, depth of knowledge, with which we can respond and influence. Hold on. I hear what you're saying. I understand you feel nervous right now because you're on a precipice. But you don't need to be on that precipice. That precipice is a construction of your mind. Let's back you away from that cliff and make you comfortable. And let's talk about the huge field that you're on the edge of and how you might see this situation, this moment, this world, this realm differently. Let's talk about it. Can we talk about it? Right? Let's pull humanity away from that precipice where everything is life and death. And let's spend a little bit of time talking more about life and let death recede a little bit. We're not in immediate danger. Do you see what I'm saying? All right. So, with all of that blah, 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 I guess I needed to say all those things. Listen, I'm like you. I'm living in this day and age. And I spend a lot of time thinking about, holy crap, what is going on? Right? Haven't you ever heard it? What's wrong with people? How often do you hear that statement? Let's agree, it's frightening. But we can affect it. We can influence it. And see, those words, they're not as immediate, are they? We're not trying to beat the hell out of them. We're not trying to wake them up. Not that way. We're responsible for our own slapping around and waking up. But we need to understand how to do it. We need to recognize where we are in our minds and back away from that precipice and really consider what we're missing while we're so frothing in this moment. We're missing, oh my goodness, life. Can we get back to life? Isn't that amazing enough to hold our attention? Our mission as Buddhists is no smaller than that, my friends. Certainly for ourselves, but by the nature of self and other being an illusion, as we work on our own enlightenment, so too do we affect our environs, others, quote unquote, right? Introduction. Pieces of the original manuscript of this letter, which Nichiren Shonin sent to Tokijonin from Sado in 1273, still exist at the Tanjoji Temple and other places. So it's in fragments in different places. Since the last part of the letter is missing, unfortunately, Nichiren likes to wrap things up in the last part of a letter, so we won't have that part. There are a few differing opinions regarding the date and the letter that the letter was written and to whom it was addressed. Okay, that may be important to academicians, but as far as understanding the meaning and the scholarship of Nichiren, that's not going to get in our way. Not much, right? We're more interested in what he has to say than who he said it to and exactly what day of the week, right? In this letter, Nichiren first explains the differences between the essential, the Honmon, teaching of the Lotus Sutra and the teachings of all the other sutras. Mahayana as well as Hinayana, declaring that all sutras are Hinayana in teaching except chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra, the duration of the life of the Tathagata. So in essence, this is something that we've been discussing a lot in several videos now. The central philosophy, doctrine of Nichiren revolves around Shakyamuni's teachings of, and it's only found really most specifically in the 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, but this idea that Buddha-ness, has no time, that it is an essential ingredient in the engine of life that is the universe, that labeling it Buddha is labeling something of an experience of that truth within the human mind or sentient beings, right? Or, for that matter, extended sentient and insentient beings. In other words, all manifestations in the universe are of this energy, the karma, the formations, this whole formula of energy with work, energy with action, karma, the formations of form, is the realization of the entire process of life. that you could call that Buddha, and it would be, you could see it in the writings of Shakyamuni, but more accurately, Buddha specifically is the experience of that truth. So when we say Buddha mind or Buddha nature or Buddha wisdom, all of that is trying to define with words, as difficult as words are, this experience, which is, look, life is happening. Whether you pay attention to it or not, life is happening constantly. Sun flares, intergalactic debris, expansion of the universe. It's all going on. You and I may not feel the speed of the earth spinning and hurtling around the sun, which itself is a system of planets around the sun hurtling around our galaxy, hundreds of thousands of miles an hour. But we don't have a universal speedometer to look at. We're moving. No one can deny that. Certainly. How aware are you of the movement? When you're in it, you feel static, but you're not. And the Buddhist mind is saying to your life, your selfness, your ego, look, you think you see all of this stuff as permanent, and that you have stuff, that you're losing stuff, that you're getting stuff. But that's the illusion, because you're not perceiving the bigger picture. That all of this stuff is, it's never standing still. It's never static. It's never what you call it. Unless we'll make a little room for, if you can understand that what you call things is just a label for the nature of that manifestation as it is forming, enduring, and dissolving. If you can say that is a chair and conduct the word chair in your mind as a verb, as an action, then maybe you're a little closer to the truth. That bends the mind, doesn't it? But that's the truth. Everything is in momentum, in movement, in trajectory. And if you understand that, not only for your own life, but for everything, then the ideas, the building blocks of opinions that are built on static start to dissolve. And your stress starts to go away about it. Oh, yeah. Haven't even started reading Nichiren. Secondly, he maintains that the doctrines of the attainment of Buddhahood by the two vehicles, Sravaka and Pratyeka Buddha, Hinayana by definition, the eternal Buddha and the 3,000 existences contained in one thought moment, are revealed only in the Lotus Sutra, and that therefore the Hyonmon section of the Lotus Sutra is the only true Mahayana teaching, while all other sutras are Hinayana and not able to lead living beings to enlightenment. And so by this definition, in context of what I was just saying earlier, Hinayana is about the static perception of the universe and life, whereas Mahayana breaks that. It breaks that staticness, and it explicitly states that Buddha is timeless, that life is timeless, that life, as temporary as it is, like Wu Ji, a single point, is a vast circle. It's everything, the potential of it. See, when we say everything, we think of that as a bubble of the things we know. But Buddhism doesn't think like that. Buddhism thinks more like Wu Ji. There is no limit. Potential is simply that. Which is energy. Once action is applied, then we have distinctions. The everythings. But prior to everythings, there is the potential for thingness. This is where Buddhism is analyzing life. Our lives, your life, my pet dog's life, the tree's life, the universe life. Thirdly, discussing the process of leading living beings to enlightenment, which is the concrete reality of the seed of Buddhahood in the 3,000 existences contained in one thought, Nichiren preaches that the seeds planted in the past lose their chance to sprout in the latter age of degeneration. Bodhisattva disciples of the original Buddha must appear in this world and plant the seed of Buddhahood for those who committed their rebellious errors and slander of the true Dharma. Because we have a history now. There's been an influence in our fundamental enlightenment by those who would bring us down into the lower worlds, into the competition of animality, the manipulations of the world of anger, people who just like to express violence or negativity, right? Ashura, demons. Or those who would just have us stop. Let's just stop. Well, stopping in a reality that is hurtling through time and space is like going backwards or dying. So no, stopping is not an option. Well, it's an option, but certainly not a living, nurturing one. It's a delusion. Lastly, Nichiren harshly criticizes the other sects for slandering the Lotus Sutra, causing them to fall into the hell, destroying Buddhism and ruining the nation. Because there's fallout from that kind of negativity. It influences, which is the influence we're trying to combat. Not combat violently, but combat through positive influence, through simply uncovering the delusion. In this thesis, Nichiren concludes that only the doctrine expounded in the Honmon chapters of the Lotus Sutra is Mahayana, while others are all Hinayana, explaining in detail what is said in his Kanjin Honzon Sho, which we just finished reading, regarding the differences between Hinayana and Mahayana sutras. Okay, so that's our preface, that's our introduction. Let's see how this jives with Nichiren's words or meaning, since we're reading a translation of a translation of a so on. So we'll just have time to get into it today. The differences between Hinayana and Mahayana teachings: the size of an object is not fixed. The size of an object is not fixed. Right away I can hear, well, a ball is a ball, you can measure, we have measurement tools, we know the size of things. Yeah, we know the size of things at the moment we measure them. But just think just a little bit about quantum for a moment and see if at some level size is kind of a relative thing. It's only in the moment, not in the big picture, right? When a 1-inch object is compared to a 1-foot object, we say the former is smaller. Compared to a 5-foot man, a 6 or 7-foot man is taller. It is the same with Buddhism. Compared to non-Buddhist teachings, all the teachings of the Hinayana and Mahayana schools can be called the Mahayana or greater vehicle. Grandmaster Chang'an of China meant the same thing when he talked about the gradual spread of the great Dharma eastward. In his introduction to the Fa Hua Shrang Yi, profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra. Grandmaster Miao Lo of China interpreted the great Dharma of Buddhism in general. The 4 Agama Sutras, Chinese translations of the long, medium, additional, and miscellaneous Agama Sutras, and all other Hinayana Sutras preached at Deer Park for a period of 12 years are called the Hinayana or Lesser Vehicle Sutras, compared to all the successively revealed Mahayana or Greater Vehicle Sutras. Right? Those are the 12 early years of Shakyamuni's teaching when he settled into, I have to train these people from their starting point to move toward what I'm trying to teach them. Of the Greater Vehicle Sutras, those of inferior quality are considered Hinayana. So Hinayana is just it's a relative bracket when considering the entirety. On their own, they're the teachings. But when you explore further the teachings, there are those that are more or less effective, more or less great. In other words, containing and opening the actual truth, the actual situation, rather than getting you there. Right? It would be like using your navigation on your phone or in your car. There's a map. Getting the map is important, but getting from the first place where you are to the next place in your movement along the map is part of the map. Absolutely. But it's not getting you to your destination. It's moving you toward it, and that has value. But until you expand your experience of the entire length of the map and achieve your destination, well, now the destination, the teaching about the destination becomes the greatest aspect of the map, does it not? Everything else falls in line as a support to get you to that point. So maybe thinking of it that way will help. There is a phrase in the Mahayana Flower Garland Sutra which reads, yearning for other lesser dharmas. Grandmaster Tendai interprets this in the wonderful words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra that, quote, the lesser dharma here does not signify the ordinary Hinayana Sutras. It refers to the lower of the 52 ranks of bodhisattvas, the 10 stages of security, 10 stages of profiting others, and 10 stages of the transfer of merit to others, compared to the higher 10 stages of developing Buddha wisdom. Regarding the statement in the Expedience chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Facile 1, quote, if I lead even a single person by the lesser vehicle, I shall be accused of stinginess. End quote. Grandmaster Tendai and Miaolo definitely stated that the Lesser Vehicle Sutras here include not only the Agama Sutras, but also the Bekkyo, the distinct teachings of the Flower Garland Sutra, and the Tsugyo, common teachings of both the Hodo and Hanya Sutras. Moreover, Tendai, in his profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, Facile 1, says that, quote, first expounding the Hinayana, then merging them into the Mahayana, means to mix and merge the teachings of gradual and instantaneous enlightenment. Grandmaster Chisho, or Enchin, explains this, quote, various provisional and true Mahayana sutras of the Buddha's 4 ways of teachings, or 8 teachings from the Flower Garland Sutra to the Wisdom Sutra, are all Zengyo and Tongyo, teachings of gradual and instantaneous enlightenment. And the clarification of those 8 teachings signifies merging them into the great perfect teachings. Tendai explains the meaning of a small dharma as seen in chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra. The duration of the life of the Tathagata, quote, some people of small virtue and much defilement sought the teachings of a small dharma, end quote. This does not indicate the lesser vehicle such as the Agama Sutras. Tendai declares, nor the great vehicle sutras such as the Flower Garland Sutra. It does denote all sutras without the teaching of the eternal Buddha including the first 14 chapters of the Lotus Sutra. The Flower Garland Sutra, the Hodo Sutras, and the Wisdom Sutra. All of them. Tendai further demonstrate that Lord Buddhas such as the Dharma-bodied Vairocana, reward-bodied Vairocana, and Great Sun Buddha of the Flower Garland Sutra, and other sutras are all minor Buddhas when compared to the eternal Buddha, not Shakyamuni, but Buddha-ness in its entirety. It's important to understand what's being said here. According to this explanation by Tendai, since the essential section of the Lotus Sutra is the essence of Buddhism, all other sutras, be they Mahayana or Hinayana, provisional or true, and exoteric or esoteric, such as the Nirvana Sutra, the Great Sun Buddha Sutra, the Lesser Vehicle Teachings, are the Lesser Vehicle Teachings. Until you get that pinnacle teaching, you're still only working toward. Until you get to the destination of the map, you're still only going toward. Even if you've reached 90% of your travels, you're still traveling. You're not there. Hinayana. Of the 8 Buddhist schools, not only are the Kusha, Jojitsu, Ritsu sects included in the lesser vehicle, but so are the Mahayana sects of Kigon, Hoso, Sanran, and Shingon. Only the doctrines of the Tendai sect comprise the great vehicle. Tendai sect is focused on the Lotus Sutra, right? It is because no other sutra than the Lotus Sutra revealed the great dharmas of attaining enlightenment by persons of the 2 vehicles and the concept of the eternal Buddha. Buddha-ness, Buddha without time. Eternal, again, that's a Western word being injected in this. It's Buddha without time. For instance, we do not call a person strong if he's merely able to hold 1 or 2 cubic feet of rock. However, one who can carry 10 cubic foot of rock is considered strong, because it's a relative statement, yeah? The greater vehicle doctrine, such as the Flower Garland Sutra, which purports the perfect harmony of all existences in the Dharma realm and 41 stages of development in studying it, The Wisdom Sutra, which preaches the identity between the realm of Buddhahood and the 9 other realms, 18 meanings of voidness, and the 10 stages of the development, such as Kenneji, the Bodhisattva Necklace Sutra, which teaches the 52 Bodhisattva stages, the Sutra of the Benevolent King, which explains the 51 Bodhisattva stages, the Medicine Master Sutra, which illustrates the 12 great vows, the Two Facile Sutra, which preaches the 48 vows, and the Great Sun Buddha Sutra, which teaches the mantra and mudra, are all both great and secret dharmas compared to the Hinayana Sutras. He's putting everything in relative closeness, distance on the map toward the objective. However, all of these sutras are still lesser dharmas when compared to the Lotus Sutra, which reveals the attainment of enlightenment by the men of the 2 vehicles and the concept of eternal Buddha. It is the same as comparing 1 or 2 feet to 10 or 20 feet. It's just a measure of how far along the expansion, the understanding, the depth of actualization in the mind to the ultimate destination, Buddha without time. The concepts of attaining enlightenment by the 2 vehicles and the eternal Buddha are vital to the Lotus Sutra. And I would say to you, the 2 vehicles are expressly pointed out here because there's a huge community of early Buddhists who have maintained that they're the only ones who understand. It's an arrogant stance. They were pointed out in the Lotus Sutra by Shakyamuni. This isn't Nichiren saying this, or Tendai. They're just pointing it out. They're saying, look, Shakyamuni pointed this out. These early practitioners, these early sects, claim to be the only ones who understand Buddha. And that is their arrogance, and that is what prevents them, right? It's even been said they have no Buddha nature. That's not true. But because of their actions, they put a hard stop to their development of Buddha-ness. And they think they have achieved what they have not, right? I'm quoting. The Arhats. The Hinayanists. But, as Nichiren is pointing out, and Tendai pointed out, and Dengyo pointed out, and Mao Lo pointed out, everything prior to the destination is Hinayana. It's not just those. Yeah. Although these concepts can scarcely be found in other sutras, they are not at all uncommon in the Lotus Sutra. The doctrine of Ichinen Sanzen, or the 3,000 existence contained in one thought moment, is the rarest and most miraculous. That perception. This theory is revealed neither in the Flower Garland nor the Great Sun Buddha Sutras. And he's talking to specific groups right now. Moreover, the founders of the 8 Buddhist sects, except for Grandmaster Tendai, did not even know its name, even though they explored it, right? The great philosophers Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu of India, they knew it, but locked this important Dharma jewel of Ichinen Sanzen deep within their hearts instead of writing it down for others to see. They saw this. They were bodhisattvas. They got it. But they didn't dare try to express it in their own words because they would just confuse people and knock them off their path to Buddhahood, which is the worst thing we could do, right? The Uzu school of followers of Hermit Kapila in ancient India stole the teaching of the three virtues from Buddhism, and Hermit Kanada formulated his 6 phrases based on Buddhist ideas. Likewise, Cheng Quan of the Kigon sect and Subakarashima of the Shingon sect stole the 3,000 existences contained in one thought doctrine and incorporated it into their own sects through reinterpretation of the key words of their basic canons. Right? We've read about that. Identity of mind, the Buddha and the people, in the Flower Garland Sutra, and reality of the mind in the Great Sun Buddha Sutra. Nevertheless, they criticized the Tendai sect, saying it was inferior to their own. They just absconded critical themes within Tendai and claimed it as their own. We read about this, right? These 2 masters are not thieves in the common sense, but thieves of the Buddha Dharma. Must we clarify this point? We must clarify this point. Because those are great slanderers using the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha for their own profit gain. That's heinous. We see that today. Recent scholars of the Tendai sect and many other schools hold that only the Lotus Sutra preaches attaining enlightenment by persons of the 2 vehicles, the Shravaka and the Prataka Buddha, and the doctrine of the eternal Buddha. I ask them in return. Okay. Now we have a quote. And I think before I get into this any more deeply, I'm going to start over that paragraph so that we can enter this quote into the next video. So I'm trying to keep all these videos under an hour. There's so much information in these videos, in these Gosho, that I think going beyond an hour is starting to drone, and we're perceiving less and less. And it's just too valuable, these lessons, to put ourselves to sleep with. Without, I will add, some clear thoughts about some aspect of it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if, hey, maybe an hour is too long. Or maybe an hour is not enough. Maybe I should vary it more. Let me know what you think in the comments, okay? Yeah, there's so, on the one hand, there's a lot of repetition throughout these teachings, these letters, these treatises of Nichiren. But I think repetition, it's just how our samsaric brains work, right? We need to hear something, maybe not so much repeated word for word, but from different constructs, contexts. Even though they're the same thing, there'll be one way of saying it that will, I actually really get that. Those insights are everything, my friends. And so, even though it may seem like we cover a lot of the same topics over and over again, certainly this is Buddhism, this is Nichiren scholarship. Of course we're going to talk about the same things. But he's always bringing up different quotes from different places, different comparisons. And I think that helps exercise our mind, our samsaric minds, to get those Gohonzon insights, right? And so whether we're thinking about them or not, when we go and face our mandala and mirror our inner Gohonzon, reality starts to shift a bit. And we enter that Buddha realization. All of these little signposts that we're getting insights of really help us solidify our confidence and our practice, right? So I hope you keep doing that. Please stay strong. Take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.